we're back outside because it's a nice day. So I'm assuming you've read the title, you know that this is going to be a video about alcohol and it's probably going to have some controversial opinions in it. Or not, I don't know. Hey, I'm not one to judge. This, if you couldn't guess, is not a scripted video at all. This is just my opinions and just a little chat and maybe just a little think about stuff. So right here I have, and I do think everyone should get one of these. Well, not everyone, but I do think that it's definitely a worthwhile purchase. Like the return on investment on this Kindle is extremely high. I've had this for about 4 years now and have only been heavily getting into it in the last maybe year and a half, if that even. I mean, they are around like 80 quid, which definitely turns a lot of people off, I think, but just from like the ease of it, being able to, like, it's very small, it's obviously, yeah, you know, you can take it around with you, and you can get books for cheaper on it as well. I don't know why I'm trying to sell you Kindles. It's just, I would recommend getting one, but that's up to you. Maybe you don't like reading, but then you might not like this video, I'm afraid. So I read this book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, by Catherine Gray. And the reason I bought it, this was probably about a year ago now. I got it because it was on sale, as I said. You get books for cheap on Kindle. It was like 80p or something. So I was like, sure, it's an interesting subject, like the idea of sobriety. So for 80p, why not? It's a book to read on holiday. I finished it a few weeks ago now. And first of all, just general review, like, it's a very good book. I very much enjoyed my time with it. It's written in a much more informal way than I would have expected. Going into it, I had absolutely no idea. I hadn't read any of Catherine's other books. Yeah, going into it, I thought it would be kind of more like a educational, here are the bad things about alcohol kind of thing. But in reality, it was much more of an autobiography, which was quite a nice surprise for me. Although I can't really relate to Catherine's story, it is the general rules, the takeaways from it are definitely applicable to most people's lives, especially in the UK. I'd say the book is half the story of Catherine herself, her life story, her struggles with like severe alcoholism, which was very interesting to read about, and then how she kind of coped with it, but then how she got out of it, and there were many relapses along the way, but eventually she's gotten to a point where she's happier than ever. So I've mentioned in a couple of videos before, I think, that my relationship with alcohol has certainly shifted in the last 2-ish years. Going into university, that was probably the peak of my drinking days, as many 18-year-olds do. Now that they are legally allowed to be drinking, they do it very often because it's still kind of a newfound concept for them. It's something that they like to partake in quite a lot, and I was no different. The amount I drank in the first year of university is honestly impressive. Thinking back on that now, I have no idea how I did that. Well, yes I do. It's because my tolerance was so high because I was drinking so often. In the last year or so, my intake of alcohol has severely dropped. I barely drink it anymore, and this book has definitely informed some of my opinions on it. She writes about how people use it as sort of a social lubricant to start off with, but then it becomes more of something you kind of need. And it's more of a necessity than like a helpful thing to have if you're going out for the night. And so many people are just hooked on it. They'll have any excuse to drink alcohol, even if there's no real reason to. They'll be like, hey, let's have a beer. And it's like, really? I don't understand why people feel the need to drink a beer for no real reason other than to drink it. Because personally, at least, the taste of beer, not that great. I don't want to pay for something that I'm, one, not going to really enjoy the taste of, and two, not really enjoy the effects of. So it's a very much lose-lose scenario. In terms of binge drinking, as in like many drinks and then going out to a nightclub, again, that's something that I don't find interesting anymore. And I'd ask you if you have any reasons as to why you think it is such a good thing. Because for me personally, there isn't much at all that's swaying me to enjoy that kind of thing anymore. I see going out drinking, clubbing as the sort of thing that you only do as a late teenager, and then probably going into your like mid-20s. But already I'm only 21 and I'm already kind of feel like I'm beyond that. The thought of going out and drinking until 4 a.m. is not something that sounds appealing at all. I like my sleep. I like my sanity. That's the thing. I hate that feeling when you've been drinking and then you're just kind of, it's like you're at the controls of your brain and suddenly all of the controls have stopped working and you're just like kicking back and relaxing, like, well, whatever happens, happens, you know, like I'm not in control anymore, it's just the alcohol. I hate that so much. And you're always a bit of a dickhead. I don't think I know anyone who is better when they're drunk than they are sober, because everyone's just a fucking idiot when they're drunk. So in the book, Catherine goes on about how she's really struggled with going from an alcoholic, hardcore alcoholic, to trying to cut it out entirely. And it's very interesting to read about how she tried so many different methods and what did and didn't work for her. But although I can't relate to the literal alcoholic part of the book, wanting to cut down on alcohol, 100%. I don't like that we have this culture in the UK, at least, of that you just drink all the time. That alcohol is such a necessity to life that, I mean, I don't know how many times a week people go down to the pub. Some people spend their entire life down at the pub. It's upsetting that they haven't achieved anything of merit that would stop them from doing that. That they're at such a low level that they're still wanting to go to the pub as often as possible to have a couple of pints. They probably won't even get at all drunk because they're so, like, their tolerance is so high that they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. The mediocrity of it is just depressing, because there's nothing special about that, especially if you're going more than once a week, and even that is a lot. There's nothing good about that. So there's one side of it that's like, oh, some people need a drink or two to, you know, socially lubricate themselves, which is like the saying of wanting to take the edge off, you know, getting just about tipsy enough to be able to open up more and be more confident, which is fair for a bit. But is it ever really just 2 drinks? Is that really ever all it is? Because it doesn't feel like it. Anyway, where am I going with this? You can tell I don't have a script. This book, even if you're not even interested in the idea of giving up alcohol, is still worth reading just for her story alone. I think it's a really interesting one. And for me, I really benefited from the later parts where she does become part of the sober community and the struggles that has with it, where because alcohol is such a normalised thing nowadays, even though it's so fucking bad for you, it's hard to go out and not drink with people. There's a film that I love called The World's End, and there's a scene in that film where one of the characters explains how they are not drinking anymore. And although in the end in the film, he does indeed have quite a lot of alcohol, and that is kind of the point of the film, it's still an enjoyable film. But that perspective is very much one that I can relate to, and how going out with a bunch of mates and ordering a tap water is, well, I'm okay with it now, but at first it was a bit of a weird thing for me to try and do. Which is odd. It's odd that it's like you go out with people and they all want to have a drink, but if you don't, it's kind of seen almost as an attack on their person, maybe. Like, because this person is so hooked on alcohol, that's the thing that they want. As soon as you say that you don't like that thing, they take it as a personal attack on them. That's really when you need to start evaluating who you're spending your time with and whether the people you hang out with share the same values as you. And as I've mentioned before, my personal opinion on when to drink alcohol, for me, it's a case-by-case scenario where, depending on what is happening to present alcohol, whether that is truly going to be worth, and it's very unlikely to be worth it, but if it's worth drinking, if it's a very special occasion, or even then, it's hard to rationalise whether drinking is a good idea. For me, at least, I just don't see the appeal in it, because all you're doing is fucking your future self over. And I want to work hard so my future self has a good time in life. And getting shit-faced is not going to help him at all. If anything, it's just going to make his life worse. So anyway, this was just a little quick half review of a book, which, again, it's very good. I would recommend. You can find it on Amazon or eBay or whatever. But it is a good book. I would definitely recommend reading it, even if you're not too into the idea of giving up alcohol. It's just a thought-provoking thing. You could read it and be like, well, this doesn't apply to me, so I'm not going to give a shit about it. Or maybe it will just lend a new, fresh perspective that you haven't thought about before, and maybe it will open up a new world to you. Who knows? That's about it. Those are my general thoughts on drinking. If you have any questions or have any counterpoints, maybe, you're welcome to go ahead and post them in the comments. And that's about it. Yeah, it's been a good talk. I'll see you all in a bit.